Welcome back, everybody, to another GYLS momentum session. This week we have another member of the Big Blue coaches, and I was actually fortunate enough to share a room, or share a common room, I guess, with Jeff last year at GYLS. So I got a peek into the behind the scenes, and this guy works miracles. Like, he's amazing. Ran with Stu every day, and he's going to teach us how to run today and how to go from 0 to a half marathon real quick. So without further ado, here's Jeff.
Cool, thanks, Sergio. Good morning, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day, wherever you are. Okay, so the purpose of the momentum session that we're going to do today is I had no running experience in a little bit over 25 years, and so my purpose was when I met Sergio at GYLS. First, GYLS is a 5-day program providing an environment designed to boost youth from 14 to 18 from about 20 different countries in leadership roles that changes their lives and the lives of the community. So my purpose was, first as a parent, was to have the vitality for me to be able to run and keep up with my kids and whatever it is that they decided to do. And second is, for the laws of attraction, I wanted to attract somebody that was similar to me, that was healthy, and also wanted to do like-minded things. And the third is, as a former runner, I missed the runner's high that I had 25 years ago when I was running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through things in about 10 different sections and go in a certain type of order. By the end, Sergio's going to bank all the questions together and fire them off at me. Most important thing is, I'm not a doctor, so if you have some health issues with anything, that the most important thing for you to do is get with your doctor and check with them on the program that I'm going to present to you. So the reason why I set the program already laid out to you, and I was able to accomplish it in a very short period of time, basically was having absolutely no running experience currently, and then decided, guess what, I'm going to go out, I'm going to run a half marathon in 13 weeks, and I was able to do that. Okay, so setting the program, what are your goals, why do you want to do it, who do you want to do it with, and who's going to hold you accountable, who's going to be your coach, who's going to be the person that is going to make sure that you are keeping up with the program that you want. So I've got some notes here I'm going to go through. For me, the greatest thing about being a runner is it's something I don't have to do with somebody. It's something that I can do by myself, or I can go off and I can do with a team. Secondly, for me to hold myself accountable is I got with the rest of the coaches, I got with my friends, and I told everybody, this is what I'm going to do. And then I also had to pay for the event as well. And for the event that I'm wearing the shirt for it at the moment, it was $100 because after I went to GYLS, after I went through everything, I created the program, the entry fee was $100. And that, to me, was a little bit of pain. There was no way I was going to spend $100 and blow $100 and not actually commit to the race. So let's go over some details. The research that I had done, first, when Sergio and I were at GYLS this past summer, I met Stu Middleman. Stu Middleman is an ultra-marathoner. He ran across the United States doing 2 marathons a day. I think he did about 7:15 per mile and ran across the United States from somewhere in California to New York in 56 days. From my discussion with him one-on-one, it's very difficult. Well, it's not difficult. It's expensive to have a one-on-one discussion with Stu Middleman, as anybody else that has that type of experience. I threw some questions at him, and he gave me some experience back. From my discussion, I learned a couple things. Number one was, he said, Jeffrey, slow down. It's a race, but it's also not a race. And how we got from California to New York was, he knew it was a race, he took it 1 mile at a time, and he went at a pace that he was able to maintain. Hence the reason momentum session is to keep this going in small spurts, as he did going across the United States. The second thing is that he got a heart rate monitor, and that, for me, was key, which I'm going to explain. I had decided every couple of years I would go back and I would start running. I would get out, get on the treadmill, have it at a full incline at 13%, and see how far I could go. Well, you know, that didn't work. And when I got the heart rate monitor, I actually took a look at it. My My heart rate was 191 beats per minute. And so, for example, let's say I'm Sergio's age, I'm 20 years old, my goal would be about 160. So 220 minus your age times 80%. There's another factor, which is you just take 180 and you minus your age. It's usually within about 5 points. So whichever method is that you choose, it's actually pretty accurate. So as I said, running at 191 beats per minute and where I should be, which is significantly lower than 160, that's the reason why I was failing. The other piece that Stu gave me was when I met him in the morning on Saturday, or whatever day it was, that I was stretching, and he looks at me trying to understand what I was doing, and he brought up the discussion on stretching. And he said, the only muscle in the body that needs to be stretched is the heart. Anything else does not need to be stretched. Now, with all due respect to Stu, because I love him and he taught me a lot, is that with Stu's body, Stu may not need to stretch at all. And what I found towards the end of my running experience to get into my race is my body needed a lot of stretching, which was a huge contributor towards part of my failure. So, like I said, all due respect to Stu, some things work for certain people, and from the discussion that I'm going to have with everybody here and the questions that all of you are going to ask, some things that I give you may not apply to you. Some things may, and some things may not. And so based on your body, just take into account what's going to work best for you. Listen to your body. That's going to be the most important thing, which I'm going to explain later. The other people I listened to was, let's see, so I looked at Jeff Galloway, Bill Rogers. I went to Runner's World. I went to various websites to look at different information from different people on how for me to create a program of how to run. Now, most of these were very similar. They all required about 4 or 5 days of running. And the biggest piece is they all said that you had to have some type of pace, whether you were walking 2 miles a day or you're running 2 or 3 miles every single day. And that was the biggest challenge I had, is I had no solid runner's experience in, like I said, about 25 years. And then I went to another person, and from where Sergio and I spent our time working with under Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins, is he released a short video with a guy named Pete Sisco, and his last name, the spelling is S as in Sam, I-S-C-O, and he wrote a book called Static Contraction. And the reason why I looked at Pete Sisco's book was his area of expertise as an exercise physiologist was how he could lift weights in the shortest period of time and achieve the largest gain of weight each time. His claim to fame, or for me, is that he does 1,000-pound shoulder shrugs, which I can't even. So I can fathom. I just cannot fathom, physically picking up 1,000 pounds, because that's obviously much more than what the body can handle. And what his records show was that, and this was the biggest piece for me, is that with the increase in load on the body and the muscles, your body needs more rest. So, for example, with Cisco, if he is doing 200-pound shoulder shrugs, and he finds that his body needs, 4 or 5 days to rest, he does that. Then when he increases it maybe to 600 pounds, he may find that his body needs about 10 days of rest. And when he starts increasing towards 800, maybe he needs 2.5 weeks of rest. So the point being is that you can't have something that is a perfect fit, such as running 2 miles. You can run 10 miles, you can run 20 miles, and then expect to run 2 days later. If you look at some people that end up running long-distance races, marathons, ultra-marathons, anything like that, that they need to get some rest. And so that's where I began to make some tailor adjustments on my program. So I balanced everything, and I created this plan, which I'm going to attempt to show you guys. And since this is my first time doing this, I apologize if I'm going to make a mistake. If I can do a screen share. And of course now it's not working. Okay, so anyways, we'll post this up at the very end. So my program that I said, as I explained, was over 13 weeks. So my long runs would be on Sunday. I would take Monday off. I'd run 3 miles on Tuesday, Wednesday off, run 3 miles on Thursday, and sometimes take Friday and Saturday off. On occasion, I would run 3 or 4 miles on Friday, and definitely take Saturday off before my long run on Sunday. With my long runs, I went, let's see, the first Sunday was 3 miles, and so I alternated my length of long runs. So as I began increasing my long runs, I always jumped back to a lower base. So the first week was 3 miles, then it was 4, 5, jumped back to 3, then I had to catch up, so I moved up to 6 miles, then I went to 8 miles, I dropped back down to 3, went to 9, dropped back down to 4, went to 11, dropped back to 4, went to 13, which was the race day. So that was the plan. And during the week, Tuesday and Thursday, all I ran was 3 miles. That was it. I didn't have anything stronger than that. Next, getting on to nutrition. You need to fuel your body for what you need. Don't put more in it, and obviously you need to make sure you have enough to support the workload that you're going to end up using. Each day I weighed myself, which was important because I needed to find out where my baseline for my weight was. There's going to be a couple different baselines I'm going to show you. It's also not strictly in regards to food, but also in regards to your fluid intake, specifically water. I don't drink soda. I think I may have had 1 beer during the entire course of the training program, but that's just me because I wanted to see how well I could go and how far. For some people, it's drinking an ounce of water per pound of body weight, but as I'm drinking, cheers. For me, I had to make sure I drank at least a gallon of water. Now, this 1 ounce of water per pound of body weight isn't just the end-all, be-all. Separate from that, the amount of water I consume during exercise, that's completely separate. One key thing I want to share with everybody is to know how much water weight that you've lost during your session. And the only way to find that out is prior to going out and running. I would say, for example, weigh my shorts or weigh whatever the clothes I have, weigh myself, and I would weigh the volume of water that I'm going to drink. When I come back from running, I weigh myself, remove the soaking wet clothes to determine how much weight I've lost in water weight, because that's going to be critical to find out how much you're perspiring. The illusion of, hey, I went out, I ran 5 miles, and I lost 4 pounds, so tomorrow I'm going to go out and run 5 more pounds. You didn't burn off tons of fat. You didn't lose 5 pounds of body fat. What you lost was mostly water, or the hydration that you need for your body to perform, which is why people start getting headaches. So that's the biggest thing. For example, when I ran one of my longest runs, I lost 4 pounds of body weight, which obviously was not all fat. It was mostly fluids, which is why I was starting to get dehydrated towards the end. My typical diet for that period was, and I don't have it in front of me, I should have, is like the green drinks, which is mostly vegetables. I would have that for breakfast and lunch. Have egg whites, toast, some fruit, and for dinner it just alternated between proteins, pizza, fish, chicken, items like that. I really didn't get into my carbohydrate building, even though pizza does have some carbohydrates. I didn't really get into my strong carbohydrate build towards the very end, which was the last 3 days. The fourth thing that I want to go over is stretching. As I discussed earlier, that was the biggest challenge I had, was not doing any stretching whatsoever. And by not stretching, I wasn't able to give my body the assistance that it needed.
Rachel's actually got a quick question for you about stretching. I was going to hold it, but now that you're talking about stretching.
Perfect, Rachel.
And she actually has 2 questions. I'll read the other one first. It says, it's so cool to have a parent do one of these and learn your perspectives. Have you read Stu Middleman's book, Slow Burn? So that's the first question. The second one is, okay, stretching, in your opinion, is it better to do it before or after you're warmed up? I've been told it's dangerous to stretch out cold muscles. And I think she just said one more thing. Did you track your macronutrients and calories? So that's kind of three questions. Did you read Stu's book, Stretch Before or After, and macronutrients and calories?
Gotcha. Okay, so Rachel, thanks for the question. First is I overlooked Stu's book. I ran through it real quick with everything else because after we were done at GYLS, I took a look at his book and I began reading a lot of other things, so I did some quick skimming of it. Basically, I was hunting for certain pieces of information for me to get my program together within 2 weeks. Second, I did not track all my calories and everything because that wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't to, per se, lose weight. It was for me to, I've got the health and the vital, but now I needed the fitness part. I wanted to be able to push my heart to where it is that I needed to be. Could I have gone out and tracked all the calories? I just didn't use that part, and I could have, and actually I'm going to redo this program again in about 2 weeks, and to provide some support to you, I actually will do that as a matter of fact. So thanks for the question. Next piece is, let's go over partnership.
And that stretching. Stretching before or after.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Rachel.
I started talking about stretching, so you never really did.
Yeah, okay, she's correct. So with stretching, I did before and after. More of my stretching before was, as Stu had discussed, not to stretch out the muscles when it's cold. I don't do, let's say, hard stretches. Let's say if I'm doing toe stretches and I'm really making sure I'm going as far as I possibly can, I'll sit down and I'll do the stretch. I'm just going to do it very lightly and relaxed. I'll go through a series of stretches, and then I'll come back and I'll start to stretch it again, but real light. Once I finish my run, since my muscles are now warmer and they've done all the work, now it would be actually much more easier for me to reach out, grab my toes, go through a cycle. So I'll go through a cycle 3 times, no different than some people on the weight training community. They will, I'm sorry, battling a cold too, is they'll do 3 sets of 8 to 15 reps or whatever it is. So that's how I actually do mine as well. Okay, where was I? All right, so stretching. I need to do stretching. I'll jump towards the end on the stretching piece. At the 11th week, I had gone to see a free sports physiologist clinic, and I told the guy I was having some challenges with some cramps, and he began trying to push my leg down, and my calves, my hams, he said everything is like, dude, I can't bend your leg at all. It's like you are completely wound up, and it's like, yeah, you're way too tight. And he's like, do you stretch? I was like, no, I don't stretch. And I gave him Stu's theory, and the guy's looking at me. It's like, I don't know who this guy is, but that obviously doesn't work for you. And like I said, all due respect to Stu, that worked for him, but it didn't work for me and my body. So yeah, and I'm just going to pick up the stretching even further this time. I didn't start my stretching until week number 11, after I found out the challenges I was having. The last 2 weeks, I didn't run at all and just stretched every single day. So on to partnership. I've got, whether you find a buddy at the gym, you've got your next door neighbor, you've got somebody, we have a Facebook group among some other peers. We have some people that are in Canada and Florida and Arizona and the Carolinas, and we're all working on events, and we're holding each other accountable that way. And you can also find, I'm sure there's got to be a Running Buddy app or something that's out there. Now, like I said, in the beginning, I needed to find a sport that I wanted to do that I could do with somebody or by myself. So there were, on occasion, I did run with somebody else, but they didn't meet the same running pace I was looking for. And if you're a runner and you run a 7-minute mile and you pair up with somebody that's doing 10 or 11 minutes, well, I found myself running backwards while they were running forwards. And I was pumping them up and motivating them, but that didn't achieve the goal that I was looking for. So just find somebody that's able to do what you're looking for. Under apps, I'm going to go over 2 apps. The first app is called Runkeeper. Both of these are free apps that I paired up with the Polar H7 heart rate monitor. I bought it on eBay for $50. I wasn't going to spend a ton of money on it. So from Runkeeper, it puts together my pace, my mileage, the elevation from its partnership with Google Maps, and it gives me my heart rate as well. The second one, because it's a Polar app, so I was able to run both of these apps simultaneously, gave me everything that Runkeeper was using, plus it added training zones, which I'd show you if the thing was working, but it's not. So I was able to look at, on one level, it would say, okay, this is my race pace of, let's say, 9 minutes per mile. And when I would start, sometimes I'd be running real fast, and then towards the end, you would see the truck going to go down a little bit lower. It would show that with my heart rate. So if my heart rate was supposed to be 160, you would see it start from the very beginning, starting here. It works its way up. It maintains it. Oh, you're the man, dude. There you are. So as you see right there in the lower section, it starts down towards the bottom, and it slowly works its way up towards where it is. In the middle, you're going to see where it just plummeted, and that kept on plummeting over and over again. I actually did this on a treadmill because of the inclement weather outside on a Sunday for my long run. I ran, I think it was my 9-mile run, over an hour and a half, and the treadmill only allowed you to run for 60 minutes, and at minute number 60, all of a sudden the thing shut down, and I was trying to get it restarted. It will only let it restart for 1 minute, and then it shut down again, and where you see that next drop is where I was trying to restart the treadmill to my right-hand side. I set it up at the speed I was looking for, and I jumped off the treadmill and jumped onto the next treadmill. People in the gym were looking at me like, this guy's absolutely out of his mind trying to jump between treadmills. So that's where you see the difference. Let's see, the other part of using a heart rate monitor is making sure that you are using it at night while you're sleeping. You need to know what your resting heart rate is. If you don't find out what your resting heart rate is, you're not going to be able to increase the workload on your heart. So for example, when I was sick, for example now, my heart rate is about 72 beats per minute at night. When I was running and I was healthy and I was feeling fine, my heart rate would be at 63 beats per minute. So because of the workload I was able to put on myself, I was able to do much better. I was able to run further, faster, and handle the workload much better. I guess the other person to use an example would be Lance Armstrong. With all opinions aside, is the one thing that is for a fact is that his resting heart rate during his program was 32 to 34 beats per minute at night, which shows that for him to handle such an increased workload, he was able to do it while keeping healthy. All right, so the next part is flexibility, and this is a huge thing with Robbins, is making sure that you're able to change your approach at any time that you actually need to. And the most important thing is learning how to change based on what your body can handle. So, for example, if I went to run 3 miles, after running 3 miles, I just needed a day off. If I ran 9 miles, after I did that long run on the treadmill, I ended up having to take about a week off because I needed to get that rest. The treadmill that I ran on was a piece of junk. In the very last couple weeks, my 3 runs were done on a treadmill, old beaten bars, and it was just not it was not physically supportive to my body. If you are a runner and you've done running on grass is great. Running on pavement is fine. One of the worst things to do, is for you to run on concrete. That's actually the hardest stuff for your body to run on. So concrete, and then old beat up treadmill with the bad bars, that actually was a huge contributor to me having some challenges. I already went over the flexibility issues that I had. So let's jump up to number 7, which is going to the pre-race. Right before the race that morning, let's see, I took some Tylenol a couple of hours before the race for me to deal with any pains that I had. I drank plenty of fluids up until 2 hours before the race. Most people will say it's important to drink fluids up until 90 minutes. Strictly water, nothing else. The reason why I chose 2 hours is if I needed to find a porta potty, I wanted to use the porta potty 30 minutes before the race started, not 2 minutes before the race started, and there was about 50 people in line. So that worked out well for me. So using that 90-minute cycle, my race was at I think 7:30 in the morning. So at 5:30, I had my last bit of fluids. I think I drank, let's say on this size bottle here, the large ones, I guess these are liters, I drank probably 3 of them, but in the last, over a course of 2 hours, so from 3:30 in the morning to about 5:30 in the morning, I drank those. Last fluids were at 5:30, and then used the bathroom at 7 o'clock for the final time, and that was it. I didn't need to use the restroom from that point forward. Like I said, determining your fluid intake is vitally important to know how much fluids that you're losing. I was able to determine that from my long run, where I said I lost 4 pounds of body weight. I did that, and I got the fluids I needed. Depending on the temperatures of where you're running, if you're outside running on a day like this and you're up in the Northeast, chapstick. There's something called Glide, which is it looks like it's a looks like a underarm deodorant stick, and it basically prevents chafing. Up in your chest area, over your nipples, whether you're a man or a woman, and you're running long distances, and you're wearing a cotton type shirt, you'll start getting some chafing. Some friends of mine, male and female, end up having their nipples are starting to bleed. For me, I work out wearing Lycra. I found out a couple times that I end up wearing cotton, that I was sweating profusely, which ends up meaning that I needed a higher fluid intake, and I got dehydrated more quickly. So that's why I began switching over to Lycra. The day of the race, since we're going to transition to that, it was 23 degrees out. It was the coldest. It was the coldest race that they had. Wind chill is about 8 degrees. So I had on 2 Lycra pants. I had on a Lycra long sleeve shirt and a light Lycra jacket. I went to Goodwill and got a real cheap jacket for $10. And the race sponsor said, guess what, wear your gloves, hats, whatever, anything that you throw off at the starting line, they're going to donate to a charity, which was perfect. So while I was standing out there for about 45 minutes before the race started, I had this jacket on. Didn't matter what it looked like. When I was done, tossed it off to the side. They donated. And within the first 2 miles of my running, as brutally cold as it was, if I was to do it again, I would have gone down to a short sleeve or a long sleeve Lycra shirt, a pair of Lycra pants, a hat, and a pair of gloves. Obviously, I couldn't take off the second pants I was wearing, and the Lycra jacket I had on. Had my race bib and some other items that I want. I couldn't take the hat off, or I could take the hat off. I chose not to. I attempted to take the gloves off, but because it was so cold, I had to keep my gloves on. So from wearing the 2 pants and the 2 shirts, I got incredibly overheated, got dehydrated very quickly. And if you're running during the day, if you're going to be out, find out which way the sun is coming up. You may need sunglasses that morning. I typically don't eat solid foods while I'm running, like power bars. I'm a power bar fan, have been for quite a long time. It's sometimes difficult to eat and chew and get the body to absorb everything, so personally I don't do it. Some people that have run with the GYLS, and this is strictly by blog experience, not my personal experience, they claim that they end up getting diarrhea. So whatever works for you based on your body, go ahead and do that. When it comes down to the actual race, enjoy. That's the most important thing. You came here to accomplish something. Take your time, have fun. My positive experiences was, guess what? I finished the race. My goal was to run at 1:59. Because I had not done any stretching until the last 10 or 12 days prior to the race, not stretching for 13 weeks. That was a huge disadvantage for me. I also threw some at the week before the race, since I wasn't doing any running whatsoever. I read about coconut water, that would help reduce the cramps in the muscles. So I put some glycogen. I put coconut water. I did a 50-50 mix of that. My recommendation is strictly going with water. Because I found out that I was getting dehydrated during the race because of the coconut water in there wasn't giving me the fuel that I needed to replenish my body right away, which was the water. Listen to the body. There were some points during the race frequently that because my IT band had started to hurt, that I had to do the run, then I did the walk, and then I did the run again. The most important thing is be proud that you're setting yourself a goal, and that I did not have an option other than finishing the race. I'm a firm believer that once I commit to something and I tell everybody about it, then I'm going to do it. Once the race was done, I celebrated. I had 1,600 milligrams of ibuprofen, had a couple power bars, drank a ton of fluids, did the rice or some form of it, got plenty of rest, put ice packs on where I needed the ice packs, and making sure that I drank and ate about 200 to 300 calories of carbohydrates within the hour of finishing, because that actually helps reduce cramps. And I didn't have any cramps other than the pain with the IT band. That was the only issue I had. So I think that's going to wrap up everything I've got. I know by the sounds of everything that Sergio's got a list of questions to throw at me.
I have a ton of questions for you. I've actually got that chart if you wanted to talk about that, but
sure,
we'll bang off a couple questions first.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch, so I'll throw one at you, answer it, and then let me know when you're good for the next one.
Sure. Yep. Go ahead.
Rachel, from back when you were talking about running with partners, have you ever tried joining a running club? I found it's easier to find more people at your level to run with who challenge you.
Correct. I did not join a running club, and the reason was the closest running club to me was about 25 or 30 minutes away. I love running with groups. I did that in the past a long time ago, but nobody local to me. And based on what I do currently, I needed a lot of flexibility for me to be able to go do my runs. Some people are able to have a consistent work schedule where they're able to go to work at a certain time and get off at a certain time. And I didn't have that luxury at the moment. So there would be some, I'm an evening runner. Some people are morning runners. So I would get off work, or I'd be out of town somewhere, and I would have a chance to run at 5:30 at night, and some nights I would be running at 9. I think the latest I ever ran when I got back from work was 2:30 in the morning. So I would have loved to have gone running out with our running group. So yeah, I think the more people that you have on your team to assist you with the team, the better. But like I said, with me, it just didn't work out at the moment.
Cool. Next. Is there any scientific way to find out how much rest your body needs after a long distance run, or do you just feel it out intuitively?
From the reading I did, from Pete Sisko, he's written, I believe, 5 books. His big book is Static Contraction. I didn't see anything that I can recall at the moment that was scientific enough. He said it was really based on the amount of body rest or rest that your body needed. If I recall correctly, what he said was, for example, if he was lifting, let's say 500 pounds, he would expect a certain percentage increase. It could be whatever that number, let's say it's 5% or 10%, whatever that number is. If one week he lifted 500 pounds, then the next week, let's say he wanted to lift an additional 25, that he wanted to go to 525 or to 550, and the next week he wasn't able to lift 525 or 550, maybe he had some difficulty lifting 500 pounds, then he realized from that point, okay, I need to get some more rest. And then he bumped up his days of rest from, let's say, 2 days to 4 days, whatever it is. And so that's what I had used when I did some of my long runs. My 6 was fine. I think my 8 or 9, that's where I took 4 days off. The first time, and then I increased just a little bit more on my final run. Well, part of it was actually the injury, but prior to the one without having the injury, that's where I had taken, I think, 4 days or 5 days off.
Okay. The next one, Rachel said shin splints. If you have any suggestions for that, I'd love to hear.
Unfortunately, I don't. I have not experienced shin splints. I know they're incredibly painful from the people I've spoken with, but I will. I'll take a look at some of the things that I've looked at and contact some friends, and when I find out, I'll send it back to you, or actually, I'll post it in our session.
Cool. Ariana asked, were there times where you had to change your approach?
Oh my God, absolutely. The biggest part of me changing the approach was based on the schedule that I created, one being at the Tuesdays and the Thursdays running 3 miles or 4 miles. Some days I didn't feel like I had it in me for me to run that 4th mile, and so I just ran 3. After running the 6 miles or the 8 miles, I decided, okay, I need to take a few extra days off. So after, let's say, for example, running the 8 miles on Sunday, instead of me running on Tuesday, so I took Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, and I ran on Thursday, or I may have taken Thursday off. I don't recall at the moment. So yeah, that, and then obviously towards the end, when I've had that injury when I was on the treadmill doing supposed to do my 11-mile run, and about the 7-mile mark, just something didn't feel right, and I started getting a lot of pain, and at the 8-mile mark, I stopped. I wasn't happy I wasn't able to achieve the 11, but I knew right there at that moment, between that 7-mile mark and that 8-mile mark, if I kept on going, I would not have achieved my goal of running the half marathon. So I stopped, got plenty of rest, went to see somebody, and they said, you need to get some stretching done, and they said, well, just lower your mileage. And I decided the best thing for me to do was not run whatsoever over the next 10 days or whatever it was until the race came up. Otherwise, I think I would have had some more significant physical challenges than actually running.
Nice. Let's see. This is from Nick. Hey Jeff, do you get any cramps when running because of the amount of fluids you drink? Is there any breathing process you do when running so that you don't run out of air?
Well, there's plenty of air around me, so I don't run out of the air. I haven't gotten any cramps from running, or any cramps from excessive fluid intake. I, for example, will consume fluids up until about on like a 3 mile or 4 mile run day. I'll consume fluids up until about an hour ahead of time, and then after that, I'm fine. And then when I feel like I need some fluids, or at least I knew based on the route that I picked, I knew where my mile markers were. And I would just pull out I had something called hand teens or hand teens. They were small. It looked like a hand weight, and I was drinking fluids from that. So I just drank the fluids as I needed them. When I began going even to the longer races, where I was on the treadmill, that's where I had the larger bottle next to me, and I would just make sure I just religiously drank more fluids.
I have a question actually myself. Are you supposed to drink before you're like thirsty, or do you like how do you? Because I know like normally if you're thirsty you're already dehydrated, but when you're running, obviously you're pushing that. So are you supposed to wait till you're thirsty, or are you supposed to drink in advance? Like how does that work?
Correct. You have to drink in advance. Otherwise, when you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. And that's your body saying, guess what? You are at this point where you are lacking fluids, and for you to try to catch up on your fluids is a little bit more difficult. And that's the challenge that I had during the actual half marathon was because I had a mixture of coconut water and water. I was hydrating, I was drinking plenty of fluids, but as of the 5 mile mark, I wasn't getting enough water into the body, and so I was hitting every single water station, grabbing 2 cups of water, and I was just firing everything down. So yeah, absolutely, just drink enough fluids, at least based on what your body needs.
Okay, cool. Rachel said, "Oh my God, bleeding nipples." No, thank you. Ariana asked, "How can you pace yourself with drinking water?" We kind of just talked about that. There are times that I run and drink water while running, and then I just can't run anymore because I get headaches or stomach aches. Okay. And she said, "P.S. I hope you get better, Jeff."
No, I appreciate it. Headaches, the biggest reason for getting headaches is that you don't have, well, aside from medical issues, is when you're dehydrated, your body signals into your brain to create some pain, and that is the reason why you're getting headaches, is you are not hydrated enough. So I would revisit the amount of water that you're drinking on a daily basis, and then if you're asking the question about how do I physically drink water while I'm running, I experimented with a couple different things. First was the little hand teen things, so it's kind of the small thing, and I'm just trying to drink at it. I did the hydration pack. I did that as well. That didn't work so well for me. So yeah, for you to maintain a certain pace while you're running, while you're drinking, I just don't think it's realistic. So if you're at a 7-minute pace or a 10-minute pace and you need to slow down to drink some fluids, slow down, drink the fluids, because while you're slowing down and drinking the fluids, you'll be able to pick up the pace as soon as you're done drinking your fluids.
Cool. Rachel said, "I know it isn't important and you didn't race to necessarily be the fastest. However, I'm curious about what your time was."
It was 2:26 or it was 2:28, one or the other. It wasn't that significant. My goal was to hit sub-2 at 1:59. I set the markers up with the heart rate monitor of what I needed to do, but I knew by probably mile 6, somewhere about the 10K mark, when I saw that time come across a 10K sign, that I wasn't going to hit it, and the important thing for me was to finish the race.
Nice. And Nick said, "What are all the fluids that you drink?" You said water and coconut water because I was thinking about taking a shot of whiskey right before going for my run.
If that works for you and it loosens up, let me know how that works for you. Doing the coconut water, I wouldn't do that again. I actually would save that for the end of the race. Like I mentioned, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to redo this entire program in a couple weeks and let everybody know. Maybe we'll do a real quick 2.0 session in about 4 months. And they'll let everybody know from the experiences that I got, and then for everybody else to share with me what they got out of it as well, that would be great, and I can make some adjustments onto my next program.
Are you going to do another half one or a full one?
I'm going to do, well, first I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do another half to find out how the program works, and then from originally the plan was, if I did not hurt my IT band, was for me to hit the half marathon, and then 13 weeks later for me to end up doing a marathon. So that was the original plan. So I will start the first part of this, taking increments, is for me to go ahead, I'll do the half marathon, everything works great, then I'll just ramp up, I'll do the marathon.
That's awesome. I'm pretty sure that's all the questions for you guys watching. If you have any more, now's the time. Let me see. Yeah, that was awesome. There was a whole bunch of questions. People are curious about this. Any advice for someone who's never run in their entire life, who wants to consider starting running? What would you tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the reason why I created this program, because I actually had no fitness experience on running when I decided to step out and run that day I created the program. Other than running around a football field 2 or 3 times with Stu 2 to 3 weeks earlier, that was it. I hadn't run, like I had mentioned earlier, every 2, 3 to 5 years I would go out, I would start running, and I guess the piece that I'm missing that was when I was much younger, I was out on a training run on my bicycle, and this youth decided he wanted to go across the intersection while I was riding my bike, and we collided with one another and hurt my knee, and things just never were the same again. But that was based on the education of the physicians that I had seen. And then probably about 10 or 15 years later, I found a physician that had taken care of some elite athletes. I went to see this person just on the off chance, and I saw him again right after the half marathon, as a matter of fact, and said, "Listen, here's my problem. This is what all the other doctors had said," and the guy said, "That's not your problem at all. Your problem is this." And I took that information that he gave me. This was maybe 15 years ago, and began running again. He wanted me to do a lot more one-on-one physical therapy with people, and I'm just not the physical therapy person. I want to be able to do whatever stretching and stuff is that I need for me to do, and then get out and do my work. And then when I went to revisit him again in December, we took a look at everything. He said and reminded me the issue I had was I had a slight meniscus tear. Very slight, but it wasn't going to hamper anything. You could go out, you could do the surgery. It's not going to change anything drastically. But if I was to start doing a lot more long runs over a longer period of time, and I was to do heavy runs based on some of the experience of people running 40 to 70 miles a week, he said at that point, yeah, that's where I would need to get some surgery. But if I'm running 3 miles twice a week plus a long run, so that could be anywhere between 9 and 20 miles. He said, if it hurts, slow down, ice it, and then we'll just revisit at some point in the future. So the whole purpose of doing the momentum session for all of you is to say, guess what? I hadn't run in years. Excuse me. And I was able to basically get off the couch, go out, pick a 3-mile loop that's nearby my house. I ran at whatever comfortable pace I had. I had to walk. I ran, I walked, I ran, I walked, and I kept on going. And once I finished that loop of 3 miles repetitively, sorry, I'm losing my voice. Once I was able to finish those 3 miles without stopping, then I bumped it up to 4. And then when I was able to do the 4 without stopping, I bumped it up to 5, and then to 6, and then by the time I got to the 5 or 6 mile mark, I didn't stop. It was from that point forward I found out what the pace my body needed for me to recognize, for me to be able to breathe in a certain fashion, breathing in through my nose, through the mouth. I'm a mouth breather. That's just me. And for me to maintain the pace that I needed. And like I said, if something hurts, don't do it, and just listen to what your body says.
I have a quick question. On the treadmill or running outside, do you start walking or right off the bat do you start with like a jog or running?
I start right off at my pace, because if I'm outside and I'm going to set at, let's say, the 7-minute or 10-minute pace, whatever it is, the pace I'm going to shoot for, that's the pace I go at. And so whether or not I'm outside or I'm on a treadmill, I treat both environments equally. I don't discriminate between either one.
Cool. Awesome. I think we're good for questions. I don't think anyone had any more. That was super informative. I learned a ton. I run at the gym all the time. It's kind of like a foot of snow outside, so you need like some snowshoes to run outside right now, but we're on the treadmill, so I'm definitely going to take a lot of that advice. That was really cool.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the support, my good friend, and you and we will run together this summer.
Awesome, Jeff. Have a good one, man.
I will. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.